Okay, welcome back. This is a very basic map of the New World and Old World together in the about the 1700 mark. And you've got the only colors that are shown on this map are the colors of the major colonizing powers. And you can tell Britain is the kind of green olive color, Spain is orange, France is red, uh, Portugal is this sort of gray blue in Brazil, and then honorable mention for the Dutch in the Caribbean, as well as Suriname. First thing I want to point out for this is really what may seem counterintuitive, but just where colonies exist and where they don't. And a good way to see where this map shows the whole area of colonization, but it's all the more powerful by locations of cities, because cities need more people, more protection, more wealth. Uh, Pioneers on the borderlands may demonstrate some civilization, some settling, some colonizing, but a city is, the heartland of what makes a culture, develop and strong, especially in a new world. So you look at places like New York, Boston, Jamestown, Quebec, Rio de Janeiro, Buenos Aires, Lima, Panama, and even in this smaller map, you got Havana as an example in the Caribbean. All of these, with the exception of Mexico City, which existed during the time of the Aztecs, we talked about that, Tenochtitlan. All of these existed only after the Europeans came and colonized that area and made these cities major focuses of their trade. They all have one thing in common. You got it? It's that they're all on the water. Again, ships are important. That's how things get to and from across the ocean. Even now, that's the way most materials, objects, goods are transported across oceans rather than people who take planes. But, the thousands of tons of sugar and coffee and Chinese toy products, everything that gets shipped to and from America comes across the Atlantic or comes across the Pacific, much the way that it did in the old times. So the fact that all of these European cities or European colonized cities are built on the coast is no coincidence. That's absolutely key for how these colonies become successful. Whether they're Portuguese with Rio, or Spanish with Lima, or with New York and Louisiana, New Orleans for the French and the British. Having a key contact with the court with the ocean currents is absolutely essential. Now, another thing you can see, obviously, is where the trade routes go. Again, this is something that works pretty naturally with currents. Sailing with the current rather than against it is incredibly cost efficient, and as a result, you can kind of see this cycle. It starts going downwind for the most part into the Caribbean, along the Africa coast, back up and then out again, and you get this sort of cycle, this three-pointed cycle. That's why it's called the triangle trade. This is one of those key terms, the triangle trade. So you've got the New World, you've got Europe, and you've got Africa. And this wasn't one track that every ship went across. Obviously, you can see here Angola, which is a Portuguese colony, connects straight to Brazil. And that's again because the South Atlantic current is flows differently than that of the North. So most of the slaves, most of the African descendants who are taken to Brazil have a heritage from Angola or the very southern cone of Africa. You get it's a group of language called Bantu. So Bantu speaking peoples end up in Brazil, as opposed to the Gold Coast, excuse me, Guinea, Gambia, kind of the chin of Africa. That's where most of the African people end up in the Caribbean or in the United States for that matter, or Latin America for that matter, north of South America. And this is uh, something I've mentioned before. Part of the world is ruled by region. Part of the world is ruled by finance, and part of it is individual people taking individual steps. Uh, so I want to look at this map and just kind of take that in.